Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Dr. Glenn is a clinical psychologist and former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leaving the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Before we get started, if you haven't downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com. I'm here with one of my master coaches, Fiona Pidiani. How are you, Fiona?
I'm very well, thank you, Glenn. How are you?
Good, very well. I understand you have a surprise for me today.
Oh, I don't know about a surprise, just a topic I wanted to talk about. I thought it might make an interesting podcast,
But I really want a surprise.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead.
hope it's a surprise.
Okay.
Well, Christmas is coming. We'll get a surprise, hopefully.
Yes, it will.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about, something that I think can be really helpful when we're learning how to defeat our cravings, and that's the power of positive thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're struggling and feeling really low and someone says to you, you should just think positively, it can seem like almost impossible to do this. Would you agree?
Yes, you want to slap them.
Yeah, exactly. And you start thinking, how can I possibly feel positively when I feel so low? It just seems impossible to turn that round. So the question really is, how do you switch your thinking from the negative to the positive? And it's not just as simple as turning the positivity on and off. And it's not always easy to put a big smile on your face and put aside what you've been thinking and feeling and take on a positive mindset. And I know as humans, we seem to be wired to remember and dwell on negative things more than positive ones. And this is what we call negativity bias. It seems like the human mind gives more importance and attention to negative experiences or information as compared to the positive ones. Being a psychologist, would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, because we're wired for survival and we had to detect threats. And so if there's a tiger or a tsunami coming, we had to give that a lot more attention than if it was just a nice peaceful day with a nice sunset.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And I suppose if we're walking across the road and there's a big truck coming towards us, then we have to take action there as well. So that really makes sense.
Some crazy person juggling knives who wants to throw them at us. I'm just getting carried away. Go ahead.
I read somewhere that bad news can trigger a stronger emotional response than good news. And it can be perceived as more relevant for survival, making it more engaging. So that kind of relates to what you're talking about. So in other words, we seem to be more attracted to bad news. And that there's obviously a reason for that.
That's why we get doom scrolling, where you click on the news sites and you scroll from one bad headline to the next. Oh my God, where is the danger? And you've kind of riveted and you can't stop doing it.
Yeah. And if you think about it, most of the news is bad news, or there isn't really that much good news about, is there?
Bad news is much more attention getting than good news. Yeah.
Yeah. When I used to buy newspapers, it was always the bad news on the front of the newspaper that drew your attention, not the happy stuff. The happy stuff was way back at the end of the newspaper.
Very true. Little baby dies of botulism film at 11.
Yeah. And also, if you're on the motorway or the freeway and you're driving along and there's an accident, everybody slows down to watch the accident.
It's all true. These are really good points. It's all true.
Right. So pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones and putting focus on the positive aspects of a situation can help you to cultivate a more optimistic mindset. So we've always referred to it as cultivating an identity of success, haven't we?
Yes, and collecting evidence of success. I ate 5 cupcakes instead of 15. How did I do that?
Yeah, exactly. So when you acknowledge what went well, you're better equipped to learn from that success and build on that success. So shifting your attention to your achievements rather than the setbacks can often lead to a more positive outlook on the challenges that we're coming up against.
Couldn't have said that better myself.
Maybe I picked it up from you somewhere along the line.
I originally got that from, oh my God, what was that woman's name? I interviewed a coach about 20 years ago who talked to me about collecting evidence of success and collecting evidence of failure. And that the questions you asked determined the evidence that you collected, and the evidence you collected determined the identity that you developed. So that's why you want to stop saying, why can't I stop eating? Because you're telling your brain to figure out what's the evidence that you can't stop eating. And if you go out and collect all that evidence, you're going to believe you can't stop eating.
So instead you say, what can I do?
Yes. How can I improve? What did I do right?
Yeah. On a practical level, we usually ask our clients to look at everything that's been a success so far and help them to build on that identity of a success. And as you say, we refer to the cupcakes. We get them to give examples of how they might have stopped the pig in its tracks during a binge. So we might have had 5 cupcakes instead of going on and having 15. Or they might have identified a pig squeal that they hadn't noticed before. Or maybe somebody offered them a cookie and they said no. Or they walked past a store where they previously bought problem foods. They just kept walking. Or maybe they just ate one cookie and not the whole packet. Or it could be even as simple as adding more vegetables to a meal or walking a little further than usual. So all these are what we would put into building up a picture of somebody who's successful. Every tiny little thing that's a success. Because on the other hand, people tend to look for the big things that have been the successful. It's just building up a whole picture. The big things, the small things, absolutely everything.
Absolutely. Totally in favor of this.
And I quite often suggest keeping a journal and just recording all this, because it's all very well, thinking what went well today, but if you don't keep a record of it, then you tend to go, you've forgotten about it in a couple of weeks' time.
Do you have any more specific instructions for people about that journal?
I would probably get them to do it at the end of the day. Ask themselves what went well today. What 2 or 3 things went well today, and write them down at the end of the day.
I would say write down 3 things no matter what.
3 things, yeah.
Your task is not done until you found 3 things that went well.
Yeah, so, okay, maybe be able to think of 2, but if you dig deeper, you can probably think of 3.
You can, definitely.
Talking about this, it doesn't mean that we overlook the negatives, but if we focus on the solutions rather than dwelling on the negatives, then we get more of a balanced outlook. So building up the identity of success, but looking at the negatives, work out what went wrong and work out how to fix it.
This is a story from my business life, but it applies equally as well here. I was once part of a mastermind group, and there was this guy that I think he was worth about $100 million or something, and he did it through giving it one seminar over and over again. I asked him what the real secret to his success was, and he told me I wouldn't believe it. And I said, try me. And he said that after every seminar, he and his wife had this book. It's actually this kind of book I'm writing in now, one of those Oxford composition books with the black and white covers. And after every seminar, they would ask themselves, what went well and what can we improve? And he said that book was worth its weight in gold. They just wrote in the same book every single time, what went well and what can I improve? If you do that with your food every single day, you can't help but make progress because you are constantly asking yourself the right questions. You're building on your successes and you're figuring out how you can leverage those successes for more. What went well? What can I improve?
Another thing that I've sometimes done through email is, somebody that feels a bit stuck, clients who've been a bit stuck, just write to me and tell me what went well. I don't want to know anything else. I don't want to know what went wrong. Just keep writing to me and tell me what went well. That doesn't mean we overlook what didn't go so well, but all I want you to do today is tell me what went well.
How do you stop them from telling you what went wrong?
I've only done this in a few specific cases, and it's been people that tend to focus on the negative, and I say, right, for the next week, all I want to hear is what went well, and that's what I want from you. And it really seems to turn their thinking around to what can I write in this email? I'm not allowed to write anything that didn't go well.
Do you find that you can do that with clients early on, or do you have to have a good relationship with them first?
No, I think you need to build up a relationship with them first. Yeah.
I had that with a client, a recent new client. People really believe that they have to desperately tell you everything that's wrong. It's hard for them to understand that there's a secondary gain involved with that, because if you focus on everything that went wrong, you're not going to be able to recover. And that means you're going to eat a lot more junk. In their heart of heart, every bone in their body believes that you have to really understand everything that's going wrong for them. And the thing is, I don't. I mean, I do a little bit, but I need to know what their success pattern is more than what their self-destructive pattern is. I do find it takes at least a month or so of really connecting with the client and them really understanding that I know what's going wrong before they can really focus on the success. It's counterintuitive because if you're in the middle of binging and you feel like you can't control yourself, it seems like you really need to show someone how much you're suffering. It's only a little bit true. What you need to do is focus on what you can do to get better. That's what you need to focus on.
Some clients, they want to tell you their whole backstory, their whole life story. And that life story might be 60 years worth. And it might be important to them to get that out. But it doesn't impact their ability to make changes now. It's good to know something about the client. It's good to learn about them, to get to know them. But you don't need to know all that to help them to move forward.
But they don't believe you.
No. And sometimes they need to talk. I find that they need to talk at the beginning. You need to just let them talk. But there's got to be a line where you say, no, okay, so that's great. It's really good to learn about you and get to know about you. But I'm here to help you move forward on this. What can we do from here? How are we moving forward?
Clients don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And sometimes they have to tell you all that in order to know how much you care and trust you, that you really do believe what they're going through. Sometimes it seems like a shame to me because it seems like a waste of time. But then I remember that I was probably the same way when I was putting this all together. So I've got to be fair with that.
I remember going to see somebody once that I thought would be able to help me, and he didn't seem interested in my problems. He just was interested in doing some techniques to help me move forward, and I understand that now, but back then I didn't. I really wanted to pour out the whole story.
Yeah. When you skin your knee and you have a boo-boo, you need mama to tell you it's going to be okay before she
Need a bit of
just stand it up.
sympathy.
Yeah. I'm a empathetic person, so I understand that. But the takeaway from a client's perspective is the faster you can get to what's going right and what you need to do to improve things, the faster you're going to get better.
Absolutely.
So anything else that you wanted to surprise me with today, Fiona?
Well, there was something else. It was this. This has come up this week, but it's come up before in our Q&A calls, and it's about body image. So I've spoken to a couple of our clients recently about how to cope with negative thinking around body image and weight gain. And people often spend lots of time and energy thinking about how much they hate their bodies. And sometimes it's just specific parts of their bodies. So they might have gained weight and they hate how they feel and they hate how they look. I've asked these couple of clients if they can start shifting their thinking to look at what each body part does for them. So, for example, if somebody hates their legs, well, what are your legs doing for you? Well, your legs are carrying you about, they're taking you wherever you want to go, they're supporting the rest of your body, they're allowing you to drive a car, exercise, ride a bike, and so much more. And then just, going through each body part which you think that you hate and ask what is that part doing for you. It definitely helps to shift their mindset to a more positive outlook.
That's very valuable. It's a pattern interrupt, isn't it? It stops them from focusing their self-hatred on there.
They might never have thought about it in that way. They just focused on, oh, I don't like the way that looks. My legs are too fat, my arms are too fat, I hate my stomach, that kind of thing.
What's really interesting about body image is that there's a lag in the mental image changing after the physical body actually does change. You've actually got to see yourself in new clothing and feel like it's a little thinner. And it's got to go on for 6 months or a year before you really feel like a thin person. I talk to a lot of people who are actually perfectly fine, but they still remember feeling, heavier and really hating the way this looks or that looks. But that's really valuable. That's a really valuable distraction.
It's funny, I've experienced that myself when I lost a lot of weight. I can remember 2 instances, and it's quite a few years ago. One was when I was in a shop. I was trying on some trousers, and they were just a little bit too big. And the girl suggested the size down, and I said, I'm not that size. She says, can I just get it and you can try them? And I kept saying, I'm not that size. And then I put them on and they fitted perfectly. And I'm still that size today, but I couldn't believe that was the size that I was.
Yeah.
And then another instance, it wasn't that long after that, I was walking through the town and there was a huge shop window and it was kind of mirrored, and I was looking at myself walking towards the shop window, and I didn't recognize myself. I thought, that's not me because I'm not that thin.
That's great. I have that with being a little more muscular now. I've been doing power yoga for 5 days a week for about 2.5 years. And I have to buy a size 18 shirt now. You know, the neck is going to be an 18. And I'm so used to being like 16 and a half or 17. And I just didn't realize that happened. So it takes a while. Anything else?
No, I think that's covered what I wanted to talk about.
I love when you come with these very concise, hard-won insights that represent your, experience with thousands of hours of clients. I really like when you do that. The last one about hunger not being an emergency, I can't tell you how many people got back to me and told me how helpful that is to them.
Yeah, a lot of people said that to me as well.
Whenever you have thoughts like this and you want to get on the air, you just tell me, okay?
I will. Thank you.
Thank you for my surprise.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. If you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.